Welcome back, everybody. Now, I fully admit the title for the video was a little clickbaity, but whenever I start playing a deck that I really like, I always I always have this kind of internal thing where I'd be like, man, it'd be great to build this with real cards. And I had that with this deck. And then as soon as I started looking at it, I was like, Mew Star, two Glaceon level X's, two Leafeon level X's. Um, One day I'll probably have kids I'd rather send to college than build this deck in when with real cards, just due to how pricey those five cards in particular were. But to get back into the video here, one of the things that I didn't like about the Eeveelutions deck was that Leafeon was the main focus, and then I played a bunch of other Eeveelutions like Jolteon and Vaporeon, Double Espeon, but none of those are really great attackers. Like, Leafeon was really the only thing in the deck that did serious damage. Things like Jolteon or the double Espeon or even Vaporeon were mainly just used as counters to other decks. So when I came back to the drawing board on it, I wanted to make a stronger core focus, a stronger aggressive focus to the deck. And one thing that I found is that I love the Glaceon deck that top aided at Worlds that year. I wasn't a huge fan of that particular list, but I saw the strength of Glaceon. I liked Leafeon from the Eeveelutions deck we covered a couple of weeks ago. Leafeon was a great attacker. So I said, Glaceon's really good, Leafeon's really good. Why don't we just put them in the same deck and see what happens? And what I found was they worked really well together. It seems like kind of an odd pair. Essentially, what I found in a lot of games is I would lead with Glaceon and then transition into Leafeon in the later stages of the game. And by the time they had that Glaceon knocked out and they put all their pressure and time into dealing with that, that gave me additional time to put energy, to get energy in play. And then by the time Leafeon actually came up, I was able to score a lot of one-hit knockouts pretty consistently. And that was the strategy I took in a lot of the games, was to lead with Glaceon and then transition into a Leafeon strategy to kind of clean up the last few prizes. Obviously, not every game is picture perfect like that, and you're going to have to always adapt to the game plan. Now, let's go ahead, just jump into the deck profile here, and we'll talk cards, each individual cards here. Of course, we play 4 copies of Eevee. That Call for Family is great to grab your Eevees out of your deck. You still prefer the Call Energy start to grab a Ball Toy along with an Eevee or something. I went with 2 Glaceons. Of course, you have to play the 2-2 line. I do think this is a deck where you could make some argument to split and go like 3-1. Like, if you were really focusing on an early Glaceon and transitioning into a later Leafeon, I think you could make like a 3-1 argument for a Leafeon, or even a 3-1 argument for a Glaceon. Just because you're not solely relying on one or the other as your main attacker, like the individual Glaceon and Leafeon decks did. But I think the 2-2 split is probably better. Snowcloak can be a really annoying attack. It's something that allows you to put some pressure on the opponent and also have that chance of not taking damage in return. Speed Slide is, it's 3 for 60. The effect, I really haven't come into a lot of situations where that matters. I guess maybe something like Bronzong or something, but it's not very common. Glaceon X. Avalanche is just a really solid attack. Obviously, the body is the real strong point of the card, but Avalanche is really good, not only for putting pressure on the opponent. 70 damage is going to two-shot anything in the format, but if you get heads and you're able to put 20 damage on your opponent's bench Pokemon, that is one more thing that's going to soften up for Leafeon. It's something that I found very commonly in the Empoleon matchup is I would use Mew or Glaceon to soften up these Leafeon, or to soften up the Empoleons, and it's very hard for this deck to, say, one-hit knockout and 130 HP Empoleon, but if they take a couple of Rainbow Waves or a couple of Avalanches, doing 90 damage with the Leafeon in the mid-game is pretty darn realistic. And especially if you've gotten that 20 or 40 damage on multiple Empoleons, you can run through several Empoleons in a couple of turns. Don't underestimate that bench damage there. We went with 2 Leafeons, 2 Leafeon X. Obviously, Leafeon X is the main point. That energy forcing not only helps us get a lot of energy and play quickly. Verdant Dance is very strong. And then both Bind Down and Leaf Guard can be situationally good. That Leaf Guard in particular I found to be very good in, say, like the Empoleon matchup. It's very hard for them to get a one-hit knockout on a Leafeon that you have that Leaf Guard on. That along with Resistance and the Espeon makes things very interesting for you. Very good math for you. The Espeon, the plus 20 HP, you had to play at least one copy of Espeon. I'm going to say playing one copy of Espeon in this variation versus two in the Pat and the other variation. You notice it a little bit more if you prize it in some matchups. It can be a little bit rough. You're a little less likely to just straight draw into it. So those are all things you notice. And then, of course, I'm going to say you do take a little bit of hit in the Gardevoir matchup. That Morning Sun is so strong against a Gardevoir in combination with Moonlight, or not Moonlight Stadium, but Lake Boundary. The downside is you can't have the double rainbow in there. You have to have the scramble energy on it. And I don't play Psychic in this current list. I do think that you can make an argument to go a little bit heavier on the Espeon and then play the Lake Boundary again and then play the Psychic energy, which I'll talk about in a little bit here as well. But the double rainbow, before applying weakness and resistance, so your 60 gets changed to 50, and then even with Lake Boundary is going to double up to 100. 2 Baltoy, 2 Claydol, 1 Chatot, 1 Holin's Castform. I love Holin's Castform in the deck. I'd love to play a second copy. If it wasn't such a bad opener, it's just so, you don't want to open with this. If you open with this and they have a way to hit the bench, it is so bad for you. Something like an Empoleon deck will just dual splash around this the whole game. It's super annoying. I play 1 copy of Mew. The Rainbow Wave is the main reason you can Roseanne's for the Mew and the Water Energy and start spreading damage to your opponents. Piplups very early on in the game, and then Mimicry is the other one. This is also very good in Empoleon. As soon as they put Empoleon into play, you can start dual splashing them, all on a basic. It puts something in their face, ideally, they have to deal with. There's also some synergy there with the Holin's Castform, where essentially you get Holin's Castform under the Mew. Leafeon X kind of helps you get that energy there, and then ideally use a very strong attack from the opponent, you know, in rare situations, copying like a Glade Psychic Cut or something, for example. 1 Pachirisu. This is for the Cessation Crystal. It's pretty, there's a lot of low retreaters in the deck. So let's say our opponent opens, we open Eevee, and our opponent opens Absol Cessation Crystal. If we get the turn 1 energy drop under Eevee, let's say ideally like a call energy or something, we could call for Pachirisu Baltoy and then retreat and use Smash Short. Obviously, if we open with the Pachirisu, that call for family attack, it's just another really, really strong opener for the deck. And in any sort of Cessation Crystal matchup, this is absolutely the best opener. It's so strong to call for family, grab like an Eevee, 2 Eevees and a Baltoy, and your opponent just knows they cannot attach a Cessation Crystal. Now, I'm going to say, and you'll probably notice here, this deck is, a lot of my techs are more towards Empoleon, because that's what everybody is playing right now. I think you could tech this a little bit more for Gardevoir. And then obviously we got the Cessation Crystal tech. I think you could tech this a little bit more for Gardevoir. I think you can make an argument to play like, there's a couple different ways you could do it. I think you could play another Espeon, and then go the Lake Boundary, drop 2 Windstorms for 2 Lake Boundaries. I think that would be fine. And then I would drop probably either the Mew or the Patchy for a Jirachi. If you're really gambling, and I don't recommend it, you could probably drop a Chatot for a Jirachi as well. That'd be another option. And then switch your energy lineup a little bit to play probably 1 or 2 Psychic Energies. The other thing, if you really wanted to have a better counter against Gardevoir, I would highly recommend playing Muck. That's something else you could do with the deck. You'd have to be a little bit more creative with the room. You could possibly even make an argument to do something like drop the Windstorm countdown to 3. Once again, be a little risky. I think you could get away with 1 warp point in the deck, but I do like the second one. Just some different things that you could do to get to fit that Muck in. But the Muck is probably one of the best anti-Gardevoir techs you'd have access to. Not only for being a Psychic type and a good attacker, but also for Just getting that bonus 10 damage in and then allowing the Espeon to one-shot a Gardevoir. Supporters are pretty straightforward here. 4 Celios, 4 Roseannes, 3 Stevens, 2 Copycat, 1 BBs. I'm going to say as soon as people see you're playing Eeveelutions, they know they're pretty confident you don't play Dusknoir, so they fill their bench. Steven's Advice is such a strong card. I think you can make an argument to even play this over a Copycat, but I've also noticed that people are playing Steven so much right now that a lot of the time they will Steven's Advice up to a 10 or 11 card hand, and those are awesome to Copycat. So I think there's a couple different shifts you could do there. I'm going to say the 4 Celios, 1 BBs is correct. I could also see an argument to play like a third copy of Copycat in this. I think that's totally reasonable as well. I went with 4 Windstorm just because Cessation Crystal Beach decks are so popular right now. We're really not doing a whole lot to capitalize on weakness. I guess you could argue the Espeon against a Gardevoir, but in all honesty, we're really not doing a ton. So I'm more concerned about removing Cessation Crystal in certain matchups or removing Cessation Crystal Beach in certain matchups that I'm playing the 4 Windstorm over like a 2 Windstorm, 2 Lake Boundary. I'm going to say Cessation Crystal. Sometimes you can be strong enough just to power through them, and then sometimes in the later stages of the game, you can get away with them having a beach in play. Like you can still use Verdant Dance and stuff like that to get really good damage, start taking one-hit knockouts. Usually a lot of beach decks play lower HP Pokemon, with the exception being like Blissey. That's a little bit harder to... It's very hard to play an entire game under beach, but you could get away with maybe the last 1 or 2 prizes. 2 Night Maintenance. I think you got to play 2 not only to recover your lines, throw back an Eevee, Glaceon, Glaceon X, but it's also very useful in certain situations to send back your basic energies. You really just got to know the situation in your matchup. 2 Warp Points. I played 1 in the deck, played 2 in the deck. 2 is better. I'm sure I would like 3, but it's not going to be feasible with the deck in a room. Warp Point is a pseudo Cessation Crystal counter. It also allows you to hunt for cheap prizes on the bench. I've won quite a few games where essentially their bench is relatively weak. They've just got 1 strong Pokemon in the active spot, and I'm able to Warp Point something weaker up on the bench and steal the game off of a cheaper prize. 1 Premier Ball. A couple different things for this. Obviously, this can make Night Maintenance choices a little bit easier. You can use it reactively to grab it out of the discard pile, or proactively to grab a level X out of the deck. Obviously, with 2 Glaceon, 2 Leafeon, that Premier Ball, you can get a lot of mileage out of it, and it's very good in different situations. I'm also going to say that I like the fact that if I'm really hunting out, I've got to find a Glaceon, or I've got to find a Leafeon this turn, I can Cosmic Power, try to find it. If I don't find it off the Cosmic Power, if I don't find the Celios, the BBs, whatever, I can Steven's Advice for ideally 5 or 6 cards in the mid to late game. And then not only could I draw the Glaceon or the Leafeon off of it, whatever I'm looking for, but Premier Ball would be 1 more out that I could draw off a large Stevens to then go and search out the level X. So it helps my odds a little bit in that situation. Energy, 4 Call, 4 Double Rainbow. I think you have to have the 4 Double Rainbow. It's the only way, not the only way, but it's the best way to get good numbers with Verdant Dance. While the Double Rainbow does the 10 less damage when you're attacking with it on your active, you can throw it on the Espeon, Glaceon, whatever on the bench, and that Verdant Dance isn't going to reduce the 10. 3 Scrambles. I like 4 in the deck, just not plausible with what I need for basic energy in here. 3 Water. I added the 3rd Water just because you really want just a single Water for the Glaceon Snow Cloak, and then obviously the Napoleon matchup from you. I think you could get away with 2 if you needed to drop 1 to play the Jirachi. I like 3. And then 2 Grass. Seems a little low, but you also have the Double Rainbow and the Cast Form to fill the Leafeon requirements. It's just nice to be able to grab 1 off Roseanne's. But anyways, this is the Leafeon Glaceon deck that I've been playing lately. This is currently my absolute favorite variation of Eeveelutions. Not only does it make for really fun gameplay, but I've also found this to be the strongest variation of the deck. But anyways, I'm going to wrap up the video here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. And of course, I hope to see you in the next video.